We need to learn again how to look for the strengths of our families. If we can do that, if the families understand that someone sees the good, understands some of the struggles that they may be going through, and still sees them as an equal partner, then we can create the kind of relationship that makes so much possible.
All families face stress, just the simple things that, getting your homework done, getting the kids ready for bed, getting supper, all those things that are stressors or difficulties that every family faces. When you look at-risk families, there's additional things. Poverty is found in about 75% of substantiated cases in Kentucky. Substance abuse is found in about 60% of all substantiated cases. So if you take the normal family stress and you add those additional things, those are the type of things that our families are facing. We know that families typically who have gotten into situations of abuse and neglect are 75% of those families will have more than one of those additional stress factors.
Providers can oftentimes tell a family about certain resources out in the community, but when you hear it from other parents and you say, this is the therapist that really is good at working with kids that have this disability, or this is the program that really did listen to my voice as a parent, getting those resources from each other, reducing that isolation, and just being able to know that you're in a community where people understand your kids' quirky behaviors or challenging behaviors, and they're not judging you.
We know that all families need support from their communities to succeed and to help families and children thrive. We know from working with families that have had issues or at risk of abuse or neglect that they are particularly in need of support. We try to help them find resources in their community, concrete resources. Families that have access to things like rent assistance, affordable child care, food, when they're confronted with poverty or those kind of stresses, are much less likely to fall into that cycle of abuse or neglect if they've access to those services.
There's no way to explain the isolation a family feels when they're sitting at home in their community by themselves and their child doesn't have friends, or their child has difficulty making friends or keeping friends. It's just so isolating.
In my community in Taylorsville, I started a support group several years ago, 5 years ago, and for other parents who had children with disabilities and some who do not. And coming together with them helped me, for I could have someone, because I would get down and I needed someone to talk to, and it helped me to bond with them and as an outlet. And together, we would all, depend on each other and help each other. When my son, the crisis started happening with my son, I had no one. I called organization after organization. They couldn't help me. I was prejudged, and that's what cut to my core. There's no excuse for someone, if they want help, that they can't get help.
It always helps to have somebody to talk to about things in life, because it's not fun being alone, because I started out alone and I had to just research everything on the computer till my eyes fell out, basically, because I didn't have anybody. I didn't know about the organizations that you could call, and I actually started a couple of support groups in my region. I try to help them, and they might know some things that I haven't learned yet, and they can teach me.
We know that the provision of safe and stable, nurturing relationships is key to helping children overcome adversity, and that we all have a role in that. Research tells us that children succeed at greater rates when they have more than one source of this type of long-term support and to help them through trauma.
What is it we would wish every child would be saying to themselves? Things like, I'm wonderful. Things like, I can do it. Things like, I can work hard. Things like, I can be kind. And then we look up the research and we say, hey, any research around this stuff? And sure enough, we find that if children receive these kinds of messages, they're much more likely to internalize that as part of their self-talk.
I think the key to that is helping families develop strong, nurturing and relationships with children, and that whole bonding issue. We know that's particularly important for young children, but it's something that goes through the life cycle of the child. I think it's not appropriate to assume that families have that skill, that they're just simply born with that skill. You have to teach some families how to do that and how to interact with children and how to build those relationships. When we look at situations where abuse or neglect has occurred, a common theme we see is unrealistic expectations. As an example, you might see a situation where a parent has shaken a baby, and when you start talking with them about what has happened, you realize that the precipitator to shaking is often crying. Well, those of us who have experience in child development know that crying is predictable, that it is something that all babies do, but if a parent doesn't have that information, that knowledge, that normal expectation, then they're going to become frustrated and become concerned about what's going on with the child. As a parent, if we expect that behavior, then it's easier for us to not only respond to it calmly, but know how to help that child through that developmental change.
As parents, it's very personal when we go in to advocate for our child, but sometimes when you go in with guns blazing, that's not the most effective way to build partnerships and get what your kids need. And so we really talk about how do you partner, how do you become an effective team member with those other people on your child's team, and how do you talk in a way, in a strategic way, so that those folks can really hear what you need for your child and why you need it for your child.
And that's what the Protective Factors is kind of founded in. It's looking at families' strengths, helping families identify their strengths, looking to the families to find the solutions. It's important that our interventions with families are driven by the family, that the family's in control of that. They're their own best expert. So we take those strengths and then we try to build on those in a way that helps the family get through the stress and build their level of confidence, their resiliency, their ability to deal with stress.
We need to partner with the people who have the other part of the day, the part of the day that we don't have. We need to go back and we need to say to them again, partner with us. Together, we can do something that neither one of us can do alone. It's destiny. We're part of that parenting, and we need to partner again in a far more effective way, in a far more intentional way, in a far more systematic way than we've ever done before. It's no longer good enough to have the parent like us and we like the parent. What else can we do so that parents help us be more effective and we help families be more effective?
I think one of the biggest challenges we face as providers, and one of the changes we can make, is to come to the realization that the vast majority of parents love their children and they want what's best for their children. Our role is to help us get them there.